Rewatch Podcast presents the Alien vs. Predator Rewatch. Join us each week as we discuss another film in the Alien, Prometheus, Predator, and Alien vs. Predator franchise. Send your feedback to the rewatchpodcast@gmail.com. Join us on Facebook at facebook.com/rewatchpodcast or follow us on Twitter @rewatchpod. Today we're discussing Alien 3, starring Sigourney Weaver, Charles S. Dutton, Charles Dance, Paul McGann, Brian Glover, Ralph Brown, Danny Webb, Christopher John Fields, Holt McCallany, and Lance Hendrickson, directed by David Fincher. Welcome back to the Rewatch Podcast. I'm Corey, and you want to get me some clothes, or should I just go like this?
And your ass is already on the line. The only question is, what you going to do about it?
Hey, mate.
Hey, mate. How are you, mate?
Not too bad.
Hey. Sorry we missed last week, dude.
Hey, life gets in the way sometimes.
Life gets in the way sometimes. So to all the loyal listeners out there, I apologize. You can put this one on me. Not Corey, me. All right? I take responsibility.
Yes, but we're back, and we're here at Alien 3.
It's going to be a good chat. So how about we just get into the trailer?
Let's do it.
Was there an alien on board?
Yes. There's definitely something in here with us.
We have no weapons of any kind.
Let's start.
It's here!
Back with some trivia. Do you want to kick this one off?
Yeah, sure. All right. So this film was released in the United States on May 22nd of 1992, and the film debuted at number 2 at the box office, behind, of all things, Lethal Weapon 3. This was Memorial Day weekend, and it grossed $23.1 million, screening at 2,227 theaters, but it was considered a major flop.
It's kind of interesting that it was considered a major flop, considering it still made $160 million worldwide. Like, I know it probably didn't do very well in North America. And the budget of this film was $50 to $55 million, although I have heard in some of my research and reports that I think the budget shot out to about $65 million, and it actually caused 20th Century Fox to send someone to watch over, find out what was going on the set and why it was kind of going out of control and all that kind of stuff. And I think that caused a little bit of friction.
Mm-hmm. This is definitely one of those infamous films that had a lot of studio overhanging, if you will. They send people in and tell them how the movie should be made, and of course the director, David Fincher, on his first film, not to appreciate it very much.
No, I mean he was fresh off, a very successful and famous music video career. I think he was involved with a lot of I think he did Madonna's Vogue, and he was involved with Paula Abdul and a lot of those kind of very famous kind of late 80s film clips. He's still, even to this day, involved with film clips. I know that he directed a 9 Inch Nails clip about maybe 4 or 5 years ago, maybe a bit longer. And I think he still kind of dips his toe in from time to time. So I think he appreciates that short form style kind of filmmaking. But he clearly was someone to kind of look out for. So they obviously grabbed David Fincher to direct the film. I think they originally tried to get Ridley Scott back, but for whatever reason, he clashed with the producers, and there was actually Rennie Harlan was actually, he was fresh off doing Die Hard 2. They both thought the third film should explore the origin of the xenomorph species, but this concept was actually deemed too expensive by David Giler and Walter Hill. So Scott actually declined to return, and Harlan actually later quit the film in pre-production. Scott actually ultimately got his wish to explore the xenomorph in more thorough detail later on with his 2012 film Prometheus, which we'll get to in 3 or 4 films' time. But obviously David Fincher was kind of brought in at the 11th hour to kind of take over from those guys, and not too sure it was a great kind of collaboration for those two.
We were saying about the Alien quadrilogy set. You've got it on Blu-ray, I've got it on DVD. And the great thing about that set is that all the films have the theatrical cut and the director's cut. This one doesn't have that. This has the theatrical cut and what they refer to as the assembly cut, which is a cut based on an early assembly of the film that Fincher managed to get to before walking away from it. I mean, this could have easily been an Alan Smithy film if Fincher had just walked away a little earlier, but he stuck around and did an early cut of the film, and hence, you know, his name stays on the film.
Yeah, well, I mean, we all know kind of how much of an auteur Fincher is. Like, it's his vision, that all his films are his vision, and rightly so, because, I mean, he's got the runs on the board. But keep in mind, back in 1992, David Fincher wasn't exactly David Fincher. He wasn't the director of Gone Girl or the Curious Case of Benjamin Button or Zodiac. Like, those guys, those films are just home runs, all of them.
Seven.
Of course, Seven and Fight Club and all that kind of stuff. They're great films. On the quadrilogy set, before all the films, there's actually a small introduction by the director explaining what they're seeing, whether it be a director's cut or a theatrical cut or whatever it might be. But Fincher flat out refused. He's not on the commentary. I think he is in the making of, but not as a talking head talking to the camera. It's literally just footage of him making the film back in 1992, and I don't even think he really likes talking about it. Like, I think the experience of making Alien 3 for Fincher was quite unpleasant, and I think he feels that his original vision was kind of removed from the finished product, and for that reason alone, he can't really tolerate even watching it.
Yeah, exactly. This film is all over the place. It's very evident when you look into it just exactly what kind of debacle this was.
Yeah, it feels a little thrown together, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, even looking at like early scripts and things like that, I mean, early scripts had Hicks and Newt and Bishop going forward as characters when, you know, Sigourney Weaver wasn't going to be involved, but then she was involved, and then this whole thing about killing off Hicks and Newt comes into it, and he's like, seriously? Like, it's just, it's a shambles.
Well, it basically changes the total focus of the previous film, doesn't it? Like, at the end of Aliens, they get away. Isn't it right at the end of the film, the alien gets kind of blown out of the airlock, doesn't it? And then they take off, and that's it, yeah?
No, she fights the alien queen and...
That's exactly right.
Blasted out of the airlock, and all's a happy ending.
Yeah, that's right. So they fly off, and next thing you think is that they're going to end up in Earth. And the start of this film just undoes all that progress that they made. It basically turns Aliens into a tragedy. Unfortunately, they made a choice, and truthfully, they made a bold choice. Not too sure if it was the right choice, but like any good film, you just got to accept these things. I mean, not all cinema has to be comfortable and kind of sunshine and lollipops. Sometimes bad stuff happens, and you just got to accept that and kind of move on. And, you know, so Alien 3 definitely falls into that category. It's a shame, though, because you've got Alien, which is a masterpiece, Aliens, which is arguably better than the first, and then you got Alien 3. From a fanboy perspective, and certainly an intern perspective, it's a pretty divisive film.
This other great bit of trivia here says that Clemens, Charles Dance's character, he has a line in the film where he says Fury 116 is a Weyland-Yutani backwater prison planet. And apparently this is the first time that Weyland-Yutani is spoken out loud in the film. It's always appeared on screens and whatnot. But the characters in the film have always referred to it as the company.
They use the words the company quite a lot. So especially towards the end, like, we're from the company and all that kind of stuff, yeah?
But it's just interesting that it's the first time it's actually been spoken. They actually refer to it as, you know, Weyland-Yutani.
Apparently, Michael Biehn stated in an interview that he was deeply hurt that the film opened with the characters from Aliens, Corporal Dwayne Hicks being killed off after escaping with Ripley, Newt and Bishop at the end of the previous film, and he did not understand why he had to be killed off. He was also very kind of upset about them using his likeness at the start of the film, and he actually came to an agreement. He threatened to kind of sue the producers for using his likeness without his consent, but he actually dropped that after a while. Later, the producers actually paid him to use his picture at the beginning of the film for the computer sequence. Apparently, he received more money for use of this one image than his entire role in Aliens. Now, keep in mind, Michael Biehn was an 11th hour actor in Aliens. It was actually meant to be filled by James Remar playing Corporal Dwayne Hicks, and Michael Biehn came in, he got a call on a Saturday, flew to London on a Sunday and was filming on a Monday. Like, it was that kind of quickness. But Biehn has actually publicly stated that if he had any idea of the kind of career that David Fincher would actually go on to have, he probably would have been slightly more accommodating in the hopes of actually getting a chance to work with him on later projects. So I found that pretty interesting, yeah.
I don't even know if he was approached to come back after Sigourney Weaver was confirmed to come back. Did they actually approach him to be in the film? But the fact that they were going to use his likeness, I mean, that's fair enough. If he's not going to be in the movie, then the least they could do is give him some cash.
I'm pretty confused why they went down that path. It just felt like entirely unnecessary after the tremendous success of Aliens, and you spend so long creating these heroes that you really love, and you spent time with, and you want to see them succeed, and like, it's within the first minute of the film they kill them off. And truthfully, we'll get into like whether I kind of liked it or whatever later on, but the start of the film is quite clumsy. I feel like the way they edit it together, it feels really clumsy. Don't you agree?
Yeah, we'll talk about that when we get to the differences between the theatrical and the assembly cut.
Exactly. So Lance Henriksen only agreed to reprise his role as Bishop as a personal favour to Walter Hill. To this day, Henriksen actually said he dislikes the film for its relentless nihilistic themes that it routinely has. And it's a fair comment, Lance Henriksen. So that's okay.
This film, it just seems surrounded by negativity. And it's not only on the cast side. I mean, they had a lot of problems with the crew as well. Their original cinematographer, Alex Thompson, had to be replaced by cinematographer Jordan Cronenweth only 2 weeks into filming because Alex Thompson suffered from early onset Parkinson's disease. And then also Sigourney Weaver had a clause in her contract that said that only Walter Hill and David Giller could write the final shooting script. She wanted to make sure that only they could write the Ripley character because she feels that they do the best job, with the exception of maybe James Cameron, but of course James Cameron's not directing this film, so it's interesting how these crew problems in the background could have also affected this film.
I suspect it wasn't a comfortable set to kind of be on. It kind of looks that way a little bit too. Like, I mean, you're dead right. No one looks very relaxed, and the film does kind of feel slightly forced at times, but that's okay. I mean, Alex Thompson kind of left the project, as did the original DOP on Aliens as well. James Cameron actually clashed with him, as we spoke about in our last podcast, and was replaced by somebody else. So I can't remember his name off the top of my head. So the same thing happened on this film, and as I said before, it sounds like it was a bit of an unpleasant kind of set. Apparently, costume designer Bob Ringwood actually walked off the film early in production after finding David Fincher difficult and unpleasant to work with. So again, another sign that things just weren't that good. Writer-producer David Giler actually has stated that he actually regrets writing this movie as it eroded his authority as producer. Giler only committed to writing the film upon demands from Sigourney Weaver, who, after Vincent Ward's departure, another writer who kind of left the scene at the 11th hour, he's actually credited with coming up with the story in this film. So it'd be interesting to kind of get more of that story. So yeah, Vincent Ward's departure would only sign on to the film if, this is Sigourney Weaver only signing on to the film, if Giler and Walter Hill would pen the screenplay, as you mentioned earlier. Giler actually claimed that this actually generated conflicts between himself, director David Fincher, and Fox Studios executives, with Fox actually taking Fincher's side over Giler's. After one particularly heated disagreement, Giler actually walked off the set, leaving his duties to producer John Landau. So again, more negativity surrounding the set. So again, just doesn't sound like a very nice place to be, does it?
I think the other bit of interesting trivia here too, in relation to the budget, we're talking about how the budget may have exploded a little bit. Apparently there was $7 million worth of sets built for this film that were just unused. That they would build them and then not use them.
Yeah. It's such a shame this happened to Fincher so earlier on, because I think it kind of scarred him a little bit. In saying that, though, like, when was Seven made? I mean, David Fincher directed this in 92, and Seven was made in, let me just have a look.
I want to say about 94.
95. So he probably didn't spend too long milling about, kind of feeling sorry for himself. It sounds like he kind of got back on the horse straight away, and then obviously did Seven, and then The Game, and Fight Club, and Panic Room, and all that kind of stuff. The Fincher that we know and love. So he still credits Alien 3, although you are correct, mate. It's a stone's throw from being an Alan Smithy film, isn't it?
And I think maybe lastly here, there's an interesting bit of trivia in relation to the alien, because it is born from a different species in this film, not humans. And Fincher actually wanted the alien to be, quote unquote, more puma or beast. And they actually did get H.R. Geiger to generate some new sketch ideas. They contracted him to actually sort of elongate the spine a bit and give it thinner legs.
It definitely has a different feel about it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It feels more like an animal than a creature. I think more of a puma does kind of ring a bell a little bit. Although I did read that even though they contracted H.R. Geiger, he never actually visited set or went to the production office. Everything was done from his studio I think he lived in Switzerland, if I remember rightly. And I think he faxed designs over to one of the production designers over there. And of all the new designs, only one of Geiger's designs actually found up in the final project, which was defined as the Bambi burster, the alien that actually had long legs and walked on all fours. So he gets a big credit at the start of the film too, like creature design by, H.R. Geiger. And for them to kind of go to that effort and only use one of his designs, it's surprising, isn't it?
Seems like it's more of a coup, really. He probably took their money, sketched out something that he'd already designed, and just slightly changed it and said, thank you for the cash, see you later. And then they gave him a credit to sort of draw the people who enjoy H.R. Geiger's work into the film. So there it is.
All right, should we get into our main discussion?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it.
Alien 3. Now, as we mentioned, this film kicks off by immediately killing off all the characters from the last film except for Ripley.
I don't mean to laugh, but it's just, oh my God, like what a decision. It's brave. Let's just say that. Let's try and be positive, Corey. It's brave.
It does my head in though. I don't like it.
No, like I can't imagine that unless Carrie Henn didn't want to come back, which is possible. She may not have. And you know what? Recasting that role, you probably could have done it, but it would have been strange, yeah?
Yeah, maybe.
Has she ever actually come out publicly and said that she was offered Alien 3 or not? I mean, she is in the film, but I think they used a previous cast from like a model that she did for Aliens, and they just used her likeness, because there's a scene which we'll get to where Ripley demands to see the body and they go to the morgue and they pull it out and there's the likeness of Carrie Henn just sitting there, isn't there?
But they cut around it a fair bit so you don't get too good a look at exactly what's going on there. But yeah, it is what it is. Everybody's killed off. And in the assembly cut, I think this whole setup works way better, because in the assembly cut, we have Clemens. He's outside and he sees the crashed ship and he actually runs in and she actually washes up on the beach. So it sort of draws their connection, their relationship sort of ends up making a bit more sense.
I have seen the assembly cut. I remember watching it years and years ago, but for this particular review, I actually watched the theatrical version from 92, which is considerably shorter. I mean, the assembly cut is 145 minutes and the theatrical version is 114. So it just goes to show just how much extra footage they actually shot and how much they kind of cut out. And there is some stuff in the theatrical that is kind of, you just think, really? Like how does that make sense? So I really should go back and give the assembly cut another crack.
It's like you were saying, it just seems like a puzzle that was pieced together and it just doesn't feel quite right. They get this whole thing about how all the prisoners come in and they pull Ripley from the wreckage and all that stuff, revive her and everything. And they have this whole thing with a dog, and you think the dog maybe got a face hugger put on it because you see it sort of creep its way out. That turns out to be more of like a red herring, right?
Yes, it comes out of that creature. I suppose a face hugger kind of got onto it, and that's how the new creature kind of evolved, maybe. I don't know. It's not very clear, is it?
Exactly. And in the assembly cut, there is no dog. Like, they don't worry about that. They're not too fussed about showing you that face hugger so early on. They just let you know that this ox had died for whatever reason, they sort of allude to the fact that maybe there was a facehugger there. And then the alien just bursts from it. And you're like, okay, cool. Yeah, this whole thing with the dog, it annoys me as well. Anyway, it does turn out that she's on this prison planet, which they call Fury 161. I think it's actually called Fioria 161, but they call it Fury for short.
Yeah, and it's clearly like a prison planet, and they make it clear early in the film that it's like the worst of the worst kind of people are here, like the dregs of society and all that kind of stuff. And Ripley kind of finds herself awake and alive and confused as to why she's still alive. As you say, she kind of forms a bond fairly early on with Charles Dance's character, Jonathan Clemens, who at this stage we don't really know too much about, but the prison kind of presents him as like a doctor of some description, or somebody that's kind of taking care of Ripley. They form this kind of bond fairly earlier on because the prison population is very controlled. Apparently they've found religion. They're very spiritually kind of driven. There are no women on this planet. Like, people have not seen women for many, many, many years, and the prison is very concerned about disrupting the harmony that they've had for so long. And with the arrival of Ripley, who I think as soon as the pod kind of crashes on the arena, I think that's it, Fury 161, they do contact the company, or Weyland-Yutani, and Weyland-Yutani quickly realise that one of their big assets is alive, and they quickly send a recovery ship, but they make it clear that it's probably going to be about a week before the ship actually will get to the planet.
Of course, Ripley sees like an acid burn on one of the pods and immediately thinks, oh crap, there was an alien on board. So she needs to make sure that nobody was infected or implanted with an alien. And this is where we go to see Newt's body.
Clemens, who has discovered Hicks and Newt as being dead, he just assumes that they died from drowning and can't quite work out what. But again, it's also made pretty clear too that this planet has like the technology that they have on the ground is not very good. The equipment's pretty haphazard. Some of it works, some of it doesn't work, and it's pretty bare essentials living down there, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's pretty much that like the prison was going to be shut down, but like because some of these inmates had found religion or whatever, they kind of were allowed to stay there under minimal guard and everything. So it's like they're not going to go anywhere because it's an empty planet. It's pretty much like they're down there and they can't go anywhere. They can't do anything.
Don't they say somewhere that there was once like 1,000 prisoners there, and now, like, I'm pretty sure at one point they only say that there's something like 40 prisoners there or something. Is that right?
Yeah, 20 or 40. I don't know, but it's pretty low.
But they never really tell you what these people did. Maybe not that that's all that important. They just say it's the worst of the worst. The dregs, murderers, killers, rapists, all that kind of stuff. And you can tell a lot of these prisoners are slightly off-hinged.
And of course Clemens is very mysterious about why he's there as well. And they get into this autopsy, and Ripley says that there's a possible contagion of cholera.
Yeah, cholera.
To which she's like, there hasn't been a case of cholera in like 200 years. So.
Yeah, you're joking, aren't you? Yeah,
exactly. And he's onto it, but of course she manages to sort of skirt the real reasons why she wants to look into it for quite some time.
Just quickly, just whilst I think about it, I think two really, really strong points in this movie is, again, Sigourney Weaver is really good in this film. I think she is anyway. And I think Charles Dance, more famous for his Game of Thrones role in recent times, is equally as good. They really are a good kind of on-screen couple in this film.
Yeah, I agree. I think they're the two best parts of the movie. But the story itself just isn't capturing me the way the other two did. The other two had a sense of confinement about them, that the alien could jump out of anywhere. And I mean, sure, this is still set on this, for all intensive purposes, abandoned prison. But you know, there's just no other characters to latch onto other than Ripley, and to a smaller extent, the Charles Dance character of Clemens. So
I don't mind the Paul McGann character. I grew to quite like him more as the film went on, because when I think of Paul McGann, because wasn't he like one of the Doctor Who's? Is that right?
Yeah, he was in the Doctor Who movie.
Exactly. So that's where I think he's pretty good in this film. He plays crazed inmate number 5 or whatever. I think his name's Golic in the film or something like that. But the never really talk about that too much. He's just another inmate there who's found God, and they keep talking about all that kind of stuff too.
Of course, we get to see the alien come out of a dead ox, of all things, too. The ox has actually died, which, I don't know. All the other characters were alive when the alien burst out of it, so it seems like it doesn't even need the host to be alive.
Also, keep in mind, they make it pretty clear, like almost from like the first 10, 15 minutes of the film, once Ripley appears on screen, that she feels unwell, doesn't she? She's got a cough, and she's, I just feel a bit under the weather. And they keep sort of saying this like throughout the film, and you kind of think, like, as a viewer, like earlier on, gee, something's up here. And it's pretty clear where the story's kind of going a little bit, yeah?
Yeah, it's not flattering for her at all. I mean, she comes to, and she was originally covered in all this like black oil and stuff like that, and they have to shave her head because they've got a lice problem, and her left eye's like bloodshot for the whole film, and she looks beaten up.
She looks exhausted and tired. She looks shattered. Truthfully, like the scene where they tell her Newt died. I mean, I know we keep talking about it, but it's such a big deal, and the film doesn't make it a big deal. That's what's irritating about it. We just spent 2.5 hours with James Cameron and aliens building and saving these kind of people and getting and doing anything they can to kind of protect them from the alien. And this film shits on that in the first 5 minutes of the film, right? And it's like, oh my Lord, I can't believe they did that. It's crazy. Like, I know it's just kind of one of those things that I think I did read several kind of things. And I don't mean to kind of go back to the trivia, but it's just something I just want to kind of mention quickly, is that apparently the novelist Alan Dean Foster, who is very famous for doing his script to novel adaptations, like he's done it for Star Wars and dozens and dozens and dozens of really popular kind of books. Alan Dean Foster actually wrote the novelization of the film, and he objected to the storyline, most specifically the deaths of Newt and Hicks. And his initial draft of the novel actually had Newt survive, but the studio actually rejected that version, forcing Foster to keep his adaptation consistent with the film. For this reason, the author has actually declined to write any other adaptations for this franchise, simply because his experience is so lackluster on it. He just couldn't believe it, and I think he's kind of said it in several interviews that he just thought that the story was absolutely abhorrent, and he couldn't believe what direction they kind of went down. But anyway, I know I'm reverting back to trivia. Anyway.
In the version I watched, the alien bursts out of this dead ox, and it looks like pretty well grown. Like, it's larger than the little embryo that we saw burst out of the chests of our previous human victims. And that was in both versions I watched, the theatrical and the assembly cut. And apparently there is a version where it does burst out of the dog that went nowhere. In the version we watched. I mean, I've read this on Wikipedia, so there is this idea that maybe it came out of the dog at one point, but it's going back to that whole thing of, like, this movie's just a mess. Like, they couldn't even decide how they wanted the alien to be birthed.
But once the alien actually launches out, it then kind of turns into this procedural, how many members of the prisoners can we kind of kill? The alien then kind of goes on a bit of a spree, doesn't it? The alien kills several members of the colony and returns prisoner Golic to his deranged state. Ripley then, actually trying to seek some answers, goes towards the android Bishop, who Charles Dance's character Jonathan Clemens actually points her in the right direction of.
Here you are. You know, wandering around without an escort is really going to piss Superintendent Andrews off.
You tell me about your accident?
One of the prisoners has been killed.
Really? How?
Yeah, shaft. Poor sod backed into a 9-foot fan. I found something at the accident site, just a bit away from where it happened. A mark. A burn. Rather like the one you found on the girl's cryotube. Look, I'm on your side. I want to help, but I need to know what's going on. Or what you think is going on.
If you really want to help, find me a computer with audio capability so I can access this flight recorder.
We don't have anything like that here.
Well, what about Bishop?
Bishop?
The droid that crashed with me.
I can point you in the right direction. I can't join you. I have a previous engagement.
I actually didn't mind that scene with the crazy bishop and his deranged state. I thought he looked really disturbing, yeah.
Yeah, it was quite creepy.
For, early 90s kind of special effects, I thought they did a pretty good job because I don't know how many VFX were in that scene that looked like it was like animatronics almost, yeah?
Yeah, I don't think at all that was Lance Hendrickson on set. That was all practical robotic thing that they had there. Yeah, I thought it looked pretty good.
Yeah, I thought it looked pretty good too. And I thought Ripley or Sigourney Weaver did a really good job kind of interacting with it. And again, the whole scene is kind of set up to kind of create some exposition and give the audience some information about exactly kind of what happened. Because as soon as Bishop comes online, Ripley kind of seeks some answers like straight away. Like, can you tell me what exactly happened? And then Bishop starts talking like the computer. It's kind of cool, yeah? Like he accesses that data from the black box and then just finds out exactly what kind of happened.
And of course, he just relays that there was, I guess, an egg in the subflooring, so it was with them the whole way on the way back.
So after Ripley finds out this information from Bishop, she then takes it to what looks like the warden of the prisoner, who's this guy named Andrews, who basically is a big dick for the whole film. Like, this guy just doesn't really want to play the game. He doesn't want Ripley there. He doesn't want to talk to Ripley. He doesn't want to listen to her at all. He knows that she's important because the company is kind of sending someone to get them, like a rescue ship. But Brian Glover is the guy who's a British actor. He plays the prison warden, Harold Andrews, and he just doesn't want to hear anything from her, does he? He just doesn't believe it, thinks it's just total fluff, yeah?
In the meantime, like, one prisoner has been killed and they just assume he backed into a industrial fan or something because he gets all chopped up. But at this point, like, they're in the infirmary and Golic is there and he's freaking out about this dragon, and then next thing you know, bang, out comes the alien, takes out Clemens, one of the two people who I said are characters I feel like I can cling on to in this movie. So you're like, oh, well, that sucks.
I agree. When I was watching it today, I was disappointed by that. I was like, man, it would have been nice to spend a little bit more time with him. He was a good character.
Well, Ripley slept with him too, She kind of says, I've been out and about and I haven't gotten any in a while, so they
makes it pretty clear that she's got needs.
Exactly, and he's got needs too. He was apparently a prisoner at one point. He was a doctor who kind of showed up drunk to an emergency one night and killed people by prescribing the wrong dosage or something. So he kind of stuck around there because he felt like he hadn't served his appropriate time or something like that. So technically he was a prisoner, but yeah, the two of them sort of developed a relationship there, and then for him to be taken out so unceremoniously, it sucks.
I agree. It totally sucks. As you said, the alien surprises Ripley and Clemens in the prison infirmary and kills Clemens. And this is where the film kind of gets interesting, is it then examines Ripley but chooses to spare her. Actually, like, as much as the storyline's a bit silly, that scene where Ripley and that shot in particular where you see the alien and it kind of gets really close to Sigourney Weaver's face, and the alien's looking great with everything dripping off it, and it opens its mouth, and then the protruding mouth from inside the alien kind of goes out. I think that's a great shot. I think that's like even might be like the poster for the film, and it looks great.
It does look great. But again, going back to the story and where this is going to lead, is it satisfying that Ripley herself has been impregnated with the alien? I don't like it. She's been through so much. So to top it all off, they killed off all the characters left over from the last film and then have ostensibly given Ripley a death sentence as well.
Yeah, and she knows pretty quickly that it's a death sentence too. And there is a scene too where she goes, and I think it's kind of after Clemens gets died, and she finds out that the alien's inside her, that she goes and talks to Charles S. Dutton's character Dylan, who is this, what kind of almost looks like a preacher in some kind of ways. He kind of presents himself as a bit of a preacher. Like, he's the prisoner that kind of keeps the rest of the prisoners in line. And like, he says stuff like, when a prisoner gets out of line, he'll say this prisoner needs some re-education or something like that. And he's very commanding. And I think the other prisoners kind of look up to him a little bit. Like, he's not technically the leader, but he's almost like the de facto leader amongst the prisoners. Yeah. Like, I don't think he really wants the responsibility though. He says it a few times. There's a scene towards the end of the film that after Andrews gets taken away by the alien and the rest of the prisoners all kind of get together and they're scrambling, they don't really know what to do, and they all look to Dutton and say, well, Dylan, you're clearly the leader, why don't you take charge? And he's like, no, I don't want it, that's not for me. And then they all look to Ripley, don't they? That she's the next obvious one for leadership amongst that group.
Organise. We're going to organise, right? Right, well, I guess I'm next in line.
85's gonna be in charge. Jesus, give us a break.
Don't call me that.
Okay, look, there's no way I can replace Andrews. He was a good man. I know you guys didn't appreciate him.
Aaron, we don't want to hear that shit now. Hey, sister, what about you? You're an officer. How about showing us a little leadership?
Forget fucking Shirley Temple. You take charge.
Right.
You run things here anyway.
No fucking way. I'm not the officer type. I just take care of my own.
Well, what does this fucking beast want? Is his mother gonna try for us all?
Yeah.
Jesus.
Well, ain't that sweet? So how are we gonna stop it?
We have no weapons, is that correct?
Right.
I haven't seen one exactly like this before. Moves differently. But the others were afraid of fire. Not much else. Can we seal off this area?
No chance. The installation's 10 miles square. There's 600 air ducts running to the
About
surface.
videos. I see these closed-circuit monitors everywhere. We could try to find it that way.
Video system hasn't worked in years. Nothing much works here. We've got a lot of technology, no way to fix it.
What 85 is trying
Don't
to tell you is
call me
we ain't
that.
got no entertainment centre, no climate control, no video system, no surveillance, no freezers, no fucking ice cream, no rubbers, no women, no guns. All we got here is shit. Oh, what the hell are we even talking to her for? She's the one that brought the fucker. Why don't we just get her head and shove it through that fucking wall?
Sounds good to me.
It's still weird that they sort of place this stuff onto that Dylan character. I mean, it could have just been Clemens, but they killed him off, so we're stuck with Dylan. And, you know, yeah, he did have that okay scene early on, you know, when he says to Ripley, like, you don't want to know me. I'm a murderer and rapist of women and all that. So, you know, he's very unforgiving about his past. But, I get, you know, being that he is now spiritual as well, he does come to her aid later on, you know, when some of the other prisoners attack Ripley, try to rape her, and he kind of comes in and lays out his bit. So that does set him up as somewhat of a leader. But yeah, he doesn't want that. And then even later, Ripley goes to him and says, look, got this alien inside of me, so you need to kill me. And he has this whole thing of like, well, the first thing first, we're going to take care of this other alien. And only you can help us do that. So we're going to do that, and then you get to die.
Because he goes, well, you know, if it can't attack you, maybe we can use that. And like all he's really thinking of is protecting the rest of the prisoners and himself and trying to get out of this quandary that's kind of been created. And Ripley can help with that. So they use it, and then they kind of set up this bait and chase plan. They kind of try and identify like a part of the prison that is behind 6-foot kind of lead doors or something like that. And it's the only way in and out. So they conclude that if they can get or lure the alien into that part of the prison, get him behind the door somehow and shut the doors behind him, then essentially the alien is locked in there and it cannot be removed, and you know, roll credits and whatnot. But that plan doesn't really go to plan.
Yeah, of course. Like, pretty much almost everybody gets killed by the alien. But they do manage to lure it into this trap, and they're going to pour this molten metal over the top of it. Like, this prison used to be some sort of metal plant of some kind. Dylan actually sacrifices himself to make sure that plan goes ahead. He keeps the alien down there. They pour the metal on. The alien bursts from this molten metal, not dead. Like, I mean, it's okay that this happens, I guess. You just think, like, is it really that resilient? I mean, I know they call the alien the ultimate survivor, but geez.
That's why the company wants it so badly, don't they? Because it's this beautiful specimen that they can kind of do stuff with. I don't quite know what or how they can use whatever tools the alien kind of has. Like, what's their end game for actually capturing this thing? How many tests can they really run on it? I mean, it's totally crazy. I think it's a bad plan, yeah.
But it does burst from the metal, but they hit the sprinkler system. The rapid cooling of the metal forces the alien to explode, so the day is saved. But, of course, the company shows up.
The company shows up, you know, with their weird-looking glasses on and their plastic everywhere, and they actually bring a man who looks identical to Bishop and actually explains that he's actually Bishop's creator. And after the alien kind of gets wiped out, I don't quite know how they realise that Ripley has an alien insider. That's kind of unclear.
Yeah, she kind of discovers it, but she doesn't really
She doesn't
explain
divulge.
that to
She
anyone
doesn't
else.
divulge it.
Yeah, she also believes it's a queen alien as well, and they're kind of like, well, we've really got to get our hands on it.
Yeah, I'm not too sure how they got that information either. It feels a little, I mean, it's fine. You just accept it when she says it, and that's, you know, you don't really think about it too much. But I suppose the only reason why she would think that it is a queen is because the alien chose not to attack her and kind of let her be, because the alien realized that Ripley was important. That's the only thing I can really think of.
But, you know, again, like, we just have, like, another prisoner who is suddenly important, Morse. And you're just like, okay, so he's important now because Dylan's dead, Clemens is dead. So this guy Morse has to help her pretty much commit suicide.
Don't come any closer.
Wait. There to help.
Stay where you are.
Ripley,
Bishop,
I'm here to help you.
no more bullshit. I just felt it move.
You know who I am?
You're a droid. Same model as Bishop. Sent by the fucking company.
No. I'm not the Bishop android. I designed it. I'm very human. The company sent me here to show your friendly face, to demonstrate how important you are to us. To me.
You just want to take it back.
I'm gonna kill it and take you home.
Shit.
You're wrong. You wanna help?
What does that mean?
We're gonna take that out of you.
Keep it.
Can't allow it to live. Everything we know would be in jeopardy.
You don't want to take it back?
Ripley, time is important. We've got a surgical base set up on the rescue ship. Come with me. You still can have a life. Children. And most important, you'll know it's dead. Let me help you.
What guarantee do I have? Once you've taken it out, you'll destroy it.
You have to trust me. Please. Trust me.
No.
As she's falling down towards the pit, the alien kind of bursts from her chest just at that convenient moment, yeah?
Ugh, terrible.
Again, kind of unnecessary. Didn't really need to see it, but it happened. One thing I just want to go back just a little bit. The last 20 minutes of this film, like, I'm not a big guy that wants to talk too much about VFX and whatnot, but I thought the alien looked bad. I thought the VFX in the last 15 minutes of the film, anytime the actual alien was a physical thing on screen in camera, I thought looked great. But every time they did a wide shot of the alien running or leaping from a wall or jumping up into a vent, it looked terrible. I'm sure that the artists behind it were doing their best, but the physical guy in a suit looked 50 times better than the digital stuff.
I completely agree. It just didn't feel real. The idea to do it CGI was a terrible idea. We got maybe 2 or 3 shots where it was physical, on set, you know, person in a suit, you know, the classic way that they've always done the alien in the previous 2 movies. It looked great, especially the shot of when it's sniffing out Ripley and everything, you know, when it gets right close to her and everything. Looks perfect. The CGI'd alien, blah.
Like, really bad.
Really, really bad.
Not just slightly bad. Like, oh my God. Like, it totally took me out of the moment. Like, I'm meant to be on the edge of my seat, man, for the last 20 minutes of this film. It turns into a chase film, yeah? And even, again, I love Fincher as a director. I love his subsequent films, man. But if he made some of those choices, like, I really didn't like the camera from the alien's perspective shots.
Yeah, running up and down the hallways, like, across the roof and everything, upside down. Ugh.
I wasn't down with that at all.
No.
And I just, it just took me out of the film. Again, I'm meant to be on the edge of my seat. I'm meant to be like, not knowing what's going to happen. Are our heroes going to survive or what, you know? And I was just totally taken out by just some of the shonkiness of the filmmaking in this instance. So anyway, that's just my opinion.
And that's how it ends. Ripley, the person we follow through 3 films, is dead. The only survivor here is Morse. And, you know, by the end, like I said, like, suddenly Morse is important to help her commit suicide. I'm like, I don't care. Like, why did this guy survive? Whatever.
Yeah, he got shot in the leg too. And with the company's cold ass attitude, why would they take him away? It just felt odd. If you're so cold about this thing, you don't want anyone knowing what happened. I mean, who knows what happened to him afterwards, but it just felt a bit strange, didn't it?
All around, just terrible.
I didn't mind that scene though, where the new bishop, who explained himself to be Bishop's creator, has that conversation with Ripley, and he tries to like convince her to like come back to Earth. And he's like, we're going to destroy it. And she's like, what assurances can you give me? And he just says, well, you just have to trust me. And she says, not good enough, or something stupid like that. Yeah. And it's just kind of one of those things. But yeah, you're right. That's where the film ends. Don't they say that everything was sold off for scrap or something like that?
Something like that, yeah. They just locked it down, shut it down, sold everything for scrap.
And that's it. And that's the end of Alien 3, and on to Alien Resurrection.
Yes, but we'll get into that next time. But first, ratings. Recommend?
I don't know, man. I can accept like bad stuff happening in a film. Like, it doesn't, as I said before, it doesn't have to be all sunshine and lollipops. Stuff can happen to the characters that you may not agree with, and you just accept it. Alien 3 kind of made their choice by killing Newt and Hicks. I don't understand why they couldn't have kept them somehow. Like, surely they could have written them into the script somehow, or maybe the Sulaco could have crash landed on the planet with them alive. I mean, that would have been fine. I would have accepted all of this kind of nihilistic attitude amongst the prisoners if those two characters were able to kind of survive from the previous film. But anyway, it is what it is. They passed away, and we moved on to dealing with the prisoners. And, you know, I thought Charles Dance did a good job. I thought Sigourney Weaver did a good job as well. I didn't mind the film. I don't think I hated it quite as much as the rest of the internet and whatnot, but I just really disagree with some of the filmmaking choices. It's a shame that she had to kind of go down this route. Anyway, so as far as ratings recommend, I'm probably going to give this middle of the road. I'm about 5 Alien Queens for me. See it just from it's an alien film. It's not awful, but it just could have been so much more.
I think you're being kind. I don't think we've actually had a movie yet where I've maybe disliked it a little bit more than you. Usually I'm the one being kind. But this movie, the story from the get-go, killing off characters who survived in the last movie, just getting rid of them by just having them straight up die, especially Newt. Everything they put Ripley through in this, I mean, like, yeah, you know, she was so strong those last 2 movies. And then for her to just be infected with an alien and then have to kill herself in order to destroy it altogether. And I'm just like, yeah. And then just the idea of this prison planet, and then killing off more characters that they've set up, and you're just like, why'd you set up all these characters and give them more backstories and everything if you're just going to kill them off? And it just doesn't know who it wants to have around, you know? It just goes from one person to the next person, and you're just like, why are all these people important? They're just not. And at the end of the day, just the style of this movie too, and I hate to say that about a David Fincher film, because the man's got style, but this movie is just not a reflection of David Fincher's style at all. It's just, ugh. I find it quite boring, to tell you the truth. And the alien looks like crap. So, yeah, I can't recommend it. I'd probably give it maybe 3 Bishop lookalikes.
Nice. So you're at 3. I'm at 5. I'm leaning more towards you, truthfully. I'm just kind of, it's an alien film. I'm a completist. Something I will kind of mention, though, is that there has been a little bit of gossip in recent times about Neil Blomkamp actually making a sequel, a proper sequel to Aliens, a film that ignores the timeline of Alien 3 and Alien 4, takes those 2 films out of the equation and actually makes a genuine sequel.
Keeping Ripley, Hicks, and Newt.
That would be interesting. I would go and watch that, and I would watch that with open eyes. And I'm not a big fan of them ignoring timelines and all that kind of stuff, but in this instance, it would be an interesting kind of development, especially from a filmmaker as talented and interesting as Neil Blomkamp. I mean, District 9 is great, and Elysium was interesting. Chappie was divisive. I didn't hate Chappie as much as the rest of the world. I liked it. So yeah, it would be interesting to see what Neil Blomkamp does with that. I hope he does it.
Yeah, same here. Yeah, let's steer away from all this negativity that we've been getting into and actually throw out something that we're quite happy about here at the Rewatch Podcast. As we have been putting out for quite some time now, we set up a Patreon supporters page where people can come and pledge as little as $1 a month, help us keep the lights on. And we've had, a couple of people come and be our Patreons, but we do have a brand new one. So I want to give a shout out to David Gape.
Yeah, nice.
Brand new Patreon supporter. He's pledged $10 a month. And yeah, we appreciate everybody who comes over. We don't have a lot of patrons. It was something we sort of spitballed to sort of just help us cover our hosting costs and whatnot. You know, we're not getting rich off any of this by any means. But yeah, we're hoping we can get more Patreon supporters and start putting out some exclusive content, you know. Anything you want to hear us discuss, or, you know, maybe we'll come up with a few short series that only Patreon supporters can get. It'd be nice to have a few people in there and sort of, you know, make it worth our while to sort of record these extra shows.
To our two patrons, was thank you, David Guy. Thanks for coming on board and supporting us. It's most appreciated.
All right, so next week we will be getting into Alien Resurrection, 1997.
I know we'll talk about it more next week, but back in 1997, this was very anticipated, this film, for me, because it was directed by Jean-Pierre Jeunet, who directed The City of Lost Children and Delicatessen and Amelie and those kind of films. I'm looking forward to this discussion next week. So that's it for this episode of the Rewatch podcast. Keep up with listener interaction by joining our Facebook page at facebook.com/Rewatch Podcast, and follow the show on Twitter at RewatchPod, and visit our webpage at the moment, rewatchpodcast.podomatic.com.
Yes, and remember, you can always write us an email or record a voice message and send it over to the rewatchpodcast@gmail.com. And also, if you've enjoyed the show, please consider giving us a rate and review on iTunes, always very helpful. And you can help support us, as I mentioned before, by heading over to patreon.com/rewatchpodcast and sending us a small contribution as little as $1. And of course, our entire back catalogue is up on YouTube, so just search the Rewatch Podcast and subscribe today.
I think we hit on YouTube over 100 episodes. It's quite substantial.
Yeah, we should count them up, because we really should be celebrating milestones of like 100th episode and stuff like that. But we're well beyond that now, so whatever.
Anyway,
it's all in good fun. Yeah. Well, thanks for joining me for this discussion of Alien 3.
Yes, you'll probably never watch this film again.
Probably not. And I will just say, until next time, you've been in my life so long, I can't remember anything else.
And do me a favour, disconnect me. I could be reworked, but I'll never be top of the line again.
The Rewatch Podcast is not associated with the copyright holders of these films, and no copyright infringement is intended. The use of any and all copyrighted material is only for parody, news analysis, critique, or educational purposes as provided in Title 17, aka Fair Use. Music provided by Kevin MacLeod at incompetech.com. Copyright 2016, The Rewatch Podcast. Hi, Rewatch Podcast listeners. I'm Corey.
I'm Tom.
And I'm Nathan.
First off, let me say that we have all had a blast doing the Rewatch Podcast. Every week, we put out another episode for free for you. And although we enjoy these discussions with each other, we truly do this for you guys out there in podcast land.
That's right, Corey. But we are here today to tell you about Patreon. Every week, there are costs involved in podcasting about film and television, including hosting and bandwidth charges, our own personal internet usage, and film or show rentals and purchases. So, we're asking you to become a Patreon supporter.
If you can afford as little as $1 to throw our way per month, it would really help us keep the lights on. And if you want to send $100 our way every month, we wouldn't turn that down either. But it's your choice, and we appreciate the support you bring.
As always, we strive to bring you the best quality shows we can create, and we hope that you enjoy them. So head on over to patreon.com/rewatchpodcast to become one of our patrons and show your support for the Rewatch Podcast.
And if we get enough patrons, we may even be able to produce exclusive content just for the supporters in the form of simply getting episodes before the main feed release, or even bonus film discussion episodes as a thank you for your support. The website again is patreon.com/rewatchpodcast.
Thanks, everyone.